Okay, so here's our second math lesson for the week. And on this lesson, we're reviewing all of the strategies that we've learned to add fractions. So we've got this example at the top of the page. We have the two bowls. How would you calculate the total of these two amounts? Well, we know that total means that we're going to add those together. So, like I said, there's several different ways we can do it. We cannot use the first method, which is to change one denominator into the other, because 3 isn't a multiple of 4 and 4 isn't a multiple of 3. So we can't use our first way, but we could use the second way. So our problem would be 1 2/3 plus 1 3/4. And then I'll know that 2 wholes will be in my answer. So I'm really just looking at the problem 2/3 plus 3/4. So, oh geez. So I could do a quick multiply, but I'm going to go back and do the listing multiples method, the second one that I had a lesson for. And in that one, I'm going to list multiples of 3s. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Okay, and then I'll list multiples of 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16. And I see the one that they have in common is 12. So that means that I'm going to rewrite my whole equation using 12ths. And that 2 is going to stay. I made it nice and big so I remember that it's a whole number. Okay, so now I've rewritten my problem. I just need to know what 2/3 is as 12ths. And then I also will need to know, I'm running out of room here, 3/4 as 12ths. Okay, so I have 2 more little steps to do. I'll go back to my 2/3. I have to think about the relationship between the 3 and the 12. And the relationship is 3 times 4. Okay, so I'll use that times 4 to change my numerator, and then my numerator becomes 2 times 4 is 8. So that means my 2/3 in my problem is going to be 8/12. Okay, next I'm going to go down here to the 3/4. I need to know what the relationship between the 4 and the 12 is. And 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm going to use times 3 to multiply on my numerator. 3 times 3 is 9. So my second fraction is 9/12. Okay, so I've got my final step here. I need to add my 8 and 9 numerators. The 12 I've already decided was going to be my denominator because it doesn't change. Once you get a common denominator, it stays throughout the rest of the problem. So once I found 12, it was going to be there through my answer. So now all I need to do is to add the 8 and the 9. And 8 plus 9 is 17. So I could leave my answer 2 and 17/12. That's correct. It's not the best way to write the answer. What would be better is for me to reduce this because 17/12 is improper. It's unbalanced because there's a larger number in the numerator. So I want to change 17/12 into a mixed number. That means if I had 17 things and I took out groups of 12, so perhaps I had 17 eggs that I collected on Easter, and I was going to put them in boxes of 12, since 12 is a dozen. How many boxes could I fill? Well, I know I could fill one box of 12, and I would have 5 eggs left over. So that means that 17 twelfths is equal to one box with 5 left over. And then I'm always talking about twelfths. Like I said, once we decided the denominator would be 12, it was going to stay that way until I was done. So one more step, though, is that I have to account for the 2 wholes. So I'm going to add the 2 wholes from this part of my answer. Okay, so I'm just going to add the wholes 1 and 2. Those make 3, and then the 5 twelfths can just stay because it's a proper fraction. The numerator is not larger than the denominator, so I can just kind of leave it alone. All right, so 3 and 5 twelfths, that is equivalent to 2 and 17 twelfths, but it's a better answer because it's easier to look at it and know what amount you're talking about. Right? We know this amount is closer to 3 than it is to 2. Okay. So that was the listing multiples method. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So on the next one, I think I'm going to do a quick multiply. And I just like to start by pulling out those whole numbers. Sorry, that was off. All right, so I have 1 plus 1. Go to my, oh, that's right. It won't let me write on the answer. Okay, go back. Go back. Go back. Oh, now I'm stuck. Go back. Let's see. Come on. I don't know what I did. Why won't you go back? I'm doing the same thing I did before. Let's, I don't know. Okay, let's see. Let me try one more time, and then I might have to. What if I go out? There we go. And I'll go back in. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, I'll try not to do that again. So what I was saying was I was going to do a quick multiply on letter A, 1 and 2/3 plus 1 and 3/4. I know that the A in my answer is going to be 2 because 1 plus 1 is 2. And so my problem is really going to just be 2/3 plus 3/4. And like I said, I was going to do a quick multiply. And the first step in a quick multiply is to multiply the denominators together. Okay, so then I would get 12. 3 times 4 is 12. All right. Then my second step is to cross multiply. And I always start at the top of my first fraction and go down. So I'm cross multiplying, that means 2 times 4. So this one will become an 8. I'll cross multiply the other way, 3 times 3, and I'll get 9. So I'll know that my numerator is going to be that 8 plus 9, which is 17. I feel like we just did this problem. All right, so Next, we will identify that this is an improper. It's not balanced correctly because the top is bigger. It makes it unstable. So I'm going to go back and try and reduce this again. So if you remember what we just did, we are saying, we're actually doing this problem here, 17 divided by 12. And in order to do that, that really just means how many groups of 12 are in 17. And the problem I just did, I found out there was one group of 12 in 17, and there were 5 left over. And we're talking about twelfths. That's not going to change. So 1 and 5/12. I just need to make sure that I add this to my 2 wholes so that I have the whole answer, not just part of my answer. So I'm going to go ahead and write equals, even though that's not technically correct, but the answer will be 3, because 2 plus 1, right? Okay. And then 5/12. So there's the final answer. Okay, so I know there's lots of steps in these, but as you do them more and more, it will get easier. Okay, so let's look at the next one. I know in 2 2/3 plus 1 3/5, I can't use the first method of changing one denominator into the other, because 5 isn't a multiple of 3 and 3 isn't a multiple of 5. So I can either do this by listing multiples of 3s and 5s, or I could do a quick multiply. Most of the time, my students really like the quick multiply, so why don't I go ahead and do that one again? I'm going to go ahead and remind myself that my A is going to be 3 wholes, unless I have to do some kind of reducing. Okay, so I'll get rid of the 2 and get rid of the 1 because I've used those to make the 3. And I'm left with the problem 2/3 plus 3/5. All right, and I know my first step, if I'm going to do a quick multiply, is that I'm going to multiply the denominators together. 3 times 5, 15. Okay, there's half of my answer. My next step, I always like to switch colors when I get to this part. I start at the top and go down. So I'm cross multiplying 2 times 5, and that's 10. And I'm going to cross multiply the other direction, 3 times 3, and get 9. I'm going to go back to my red so you can see it better. All right, so now I'm just doing 10 plus 9. That makes 19. And guess what we have? An improper fraction, because 19 is bigger than 15. All right, so that means, just like the previous problem, I need to do 19 divided by 15. And I know you guys were shortchanged by not really getting to do much division this year. So I'm showing you kind of a workaround to, if you don't know the traditional algorithm for division. Like I said, division, the division symbol means how many groups can you make of the next number. So out of 19, how many groups can you make of 15? Well, if I don't know it in my head, I could always just write 19 on the side and subtract 15, and that ends up being 4. I don't have enough left over here in my 4 to subtract 15 again, so I'm just going to stop there, and I'm going to say 19 divided by 15 is 1 group. I get 1 group of 15. There were 4 left over of those 15. Okay, so I've reduced 19 fifteenths to 1 4/15. And I just need to make sure I add that to the 3 wholes that I decided I would have at the beginning from the 2 plus 1. So for my final answer, I need to make sure that I add the 3 wholes and the 1 whole. So I get 4. And then there's my 4/15. That's my answer. Okay. So I think you just have a few problems to work on today. A couple of them are word problems, but I know you can do them. Remember, you can use any of the last 2 methods that I've taught for adding fractions. You can list multiples to find a common denominator, like we did at the very beginning of this lesson, or you can do what we've done on these 2 step-up problems and do a quick multiply. Either way, you do want to reduce your answer if you can to make sure that your numerator is not larger than your denominator, because that's how we like to look at our fractions. All right, so if you have any questions about getting this done, you're welcome to message me, or you can hop on tomorrow at 10 o'clock. From 10 to 11, I will try to be on the Google Meet to help you with any of the math that's giving you trouble. Okay? I'll talk to you guys later.